All right, welcome to episode 10 of So What Do You Do? I created this podcast as a way to give out free and public information to college students, early career professionals looking to make a career shift, and upper management wanting to learn more about early career professionals and their experience in their industries thus far. Today we have my 10th guest, my brother, Quinn Taylor. Quinn, how are you doing today?
Great, man. It's great to see you, Kieran.
It's great to see you too. I know that you are super busy and we were trying to plan this potentially last week. So I'm really happy that we got to get some time today. I think you've seen the show, hopefully, as my brother. My first question is the question that I ask everybody, and that is, so what do you do?
So, I am an audiovisual technician for a corporate office.
And how did you first discover your field?
So, I first discovered my field when I was freelancing. I was sort of between jobs. I was doing some sports broadcasting. So, I was doing like camera work and replay editing for a small college sports company. And I was sort of just looking for more freelance work. And actually, one day on, I believe it was the commercial AV subreddit, I saw a posting for like a commercial AV job. And I had honestly never even heard of like corporate audiovisual, commercial audiovisual. Like I'd been calling myself like a broadcast engineer or a broadcast operations technician this up until then. And I hadn't even really like thought audio visual like applied to me. And then I saw this job posting and I reached out to this guy about it. And it seemed like it was basically the same skills that I use in news and sports broadcasting applied to sort of this new commercial audiovisual space. And so that's initially how I found out about it.
And what was it about this audiovisual space, or even let's take it back a little bit. Like where was that first point in your life where you felt like, potentially doing being in a broadcasting role was something you were interested in, and why? What was that drew you to this field?
Well, when I was in high school, actually, our dad signed me up for a documentary filmmaking course through, I believe it was KOVR. And if it wasn't KOVR in Sacramento, it might have been some other station. But anyways, learned how to make a documentary, like do the video for it, capture the audio, edit it, produce a documentary, and then it was put into sort of a little film festival. And from then on, I was kind of like, well, if I'm going to go to college, I want to go for something related to video production because I was immediately like attracted to it and found it as like a creative but technical sort of field, like a way where I could, tell stories and express myself while also like doing something cool and a little challenging.
So to sort of break down the timeline, you do this documentary in high school, you find a love for AV, or just being in, potentially some type of broadcasting space. You go to college. What college did you choose, and was it a college? Did you choose this college specifically for AV, or did you happen to just choose this college and then sort of, see that they had this major as a possibility for you to pursue?
Yeah, I was interested in some Northern California state school, and I had heard about San Francisco State's Broadcast and Electronic Communication Arts program, is what they call it, which is effectively TV and radio. And I applied and got into that program. I Once I was in that program, I really wasn't interested in any other program because it really was sort of the preeminent broadcasting program in Northern California. So I was very excited to get in, and when I went, it was pretty much everything I had hoped for in terms of learning, being able to get my hands on technology, learn the skills that I wanted to learn, and make some connections.
Wow, that's amazing. I always love hearing when, people they know that college is going to be the route that they want to take in order to, experience some professional development before going into the corporate world. But it's always great to hear that there's something that is applicable to the industry that you're going into, or that you're initially interested in. So that's great that, they had that program for you. So you go from this program and then you graduate, you're in San Francisco, you go straight to Sacramento, you get this job at CBS. How did that job now lead to the job that you're at today? Because it sounds like you started out with CBS, there was some sports broadcasting along the way, and now here you are as a corporate AV. So could you break down that sort of timeline for us?
Yeah. So when I got to CBS Sacramento, which is KOVR actually, which is it may or may not be the station that hosted the documentary class that I took. I actually can't remember, but anyways, so when I got to KOVR, I was hired as like an assistant director, which is kind of like a PA, but they'd hired me because in college, I had done sports production where I had learned to like technical direct. I had learned how to, work audio, how to, set up like a replay machine, camera work, like various things where I'd had hands-on experience with technology that they're using in studio. So that experience helped me get into CBS Sacramento, where I was hired as basically a camera operator. And because nowadays everything's automated, so it's like one person can operate 5, 10 cameras, in a station. And so I was really the sole camera operator for the nightly news in Sacramento, and then specifically at that station. And then eventually from the night show where I was doing camera operation, I asked to be put on the morning show, where I could have sort of like more experience doing different things. Like the morning show is more of a variety show than opposed to like just like a hard news show. So I was able to do like audio and work the audio board. You see one behind me. So it's kind of like this, but maybe like 3 times as big at the station, and learning how to like do the sound effects and like the intro music when they're coming back from commercial, or like and working everyone's microphones, people's microphones in the field and in the station, and so doing audio as well as doing like camera work and various other jobs. Like there was one job referred to as ENG, which is electronic news gathering, or uh probably would commonly be referred to as like master control, is where it's like you're sending and receiving video packages from other stations, from reporters in the field, and you're aggregating them in like a single place for the producers to grab and make a script out of. And so I basically just tried to do every job I could. That's the best advice I could give to someone when you get your foot in the door somewhere, is like, don't be too big for anything. Don't be too small for anything. It's like you figure out how you can do as much as you can. Like try to put yourself out there. Try something. Like I was not comfortable doing audio at first because I was more attuned to video and just more comfortable with it. But when they throw you in the fire, and granted, I had some training. There were really great mentors there to show me how things worked. But if you have the fundamentals, and they throw you in the fire, it's like, you learn to swim, it's like, and it really was a great proving ground for me, because I was able to show myself like, wow, I can like do, audio for live TV at a high level, and not be too intimidated by it. Like I wanted more. I wanted to like, start directing and start or move up, and start doing more challenging things. And so eventually at that station, though, the thing with legacy media is that it's legacy kind of in the name. It's like there's people that have been there for like 20, 30 years, directing, and like and it felt to me like you're kind of waiting for people to retire for opportunities to open up. And I was like, well, I felt like my talent was surpassing like what I was being offered, as in terms of like work. I was like I could be the camera guy or I could be the sound guy for forever. But it's like, for one thing, that's not going to make me any more money. The secondly, it's like it's losing the challenge. Like I needed a challenge, needed to keep pushing myself to grow my education. And so I eventually left and came back to the Bay for a sports broadcasting job with a small company out here. And they're actually the Bay Area Online Sports Network. I will plug them. They're a great team. They're a great company. But, mostly doing college sports. And it was a great challenge for me, too, because it was like, okay, now I'm working with a really small team of mostly like students, like, or very recently students, so there wasn't this like vast wealth of knowledge to pull from, or like directors or, executive producers who I could go to and be like, hey, how does this work? It's like, it was pretty much, us, the small group, and there was a lot of knowledge there in terms of like the owner of the company and some of the people he had working for him. But it was definitely a challenge, to see like how a small business could do broadcasting, and I loved it. It was really great, working with those guys, and I made a lot of friends along the way, and I learned that it's like, this can be done at a small scale, and there is demand for it, and you could run a small business and start your own business this way, and you don't have to, be some giant corporate conglomerate in order to put stuff on the airways, or online more specifically. Yeah. Okay. So then getting to how I got here after that. So I was doing the sports broadcasting, as part-time. And so I really needed more, I needed more, money. I needed like basically to like find like a full-time work. And I was like, okay, so how do I get full-time work without going back to a news station? Like, because that was really kind of the main way to get full-time work is, like, because news is on 5 times a day, in the evening, and, for 5 hours in the morning too. So it's like it's consistent. Um, and so I was looking around, and that's when it led me to sort of like the commercial AV world, where I was sort of like, I had found like the Reddit for it, and I was sort of like, oh, what is this world? I was like doing like video engineering Reddit and like different kind of like stuff on there, trying to find a community of people like me. And eventually there was this one commercial AV, which I hadn't even considered, but it's like, commercial AV is everything from, corporate offices that use like event spaces that have, giant video walls and like, TVs and like, conferencing systems, or it could be like, you go to like the bus stop and you see like the display that says like when your bus is going to show up, or you see, you go to like a restaurant and they have music playing, and they have, if it's a sports bar, they'll have TVs, and so they have a sound system. So all that is like in the audio visual space, the commercial audio visual space. And um and through so basically just through research online, I was able to find like a whole new industry within sort of my scope of broadcasting and video production, audio production, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you had, this journey of just like, a lot of perseverance. You got into legacy media. It didn't seem like legacy media was going to be sort of like a long-term fit for you. I really appreciate you mentioning the dynamic of how, you're almost waiting for turnover to happen in order to move up when working in that, with based on, your experience. And then, getting into sports broadcasting, meeting all these great people, having such a great time, but not being able to find sustainable long-term work, which, I'm sure, and you can speak more on this, but, I'm sure that might be an issue that people run into when they're, doing contract work or part-time work. And then, here you are, you've researched independently on your own, and you're in corporate AV. Um, I, I'm taking a step back again here, and it is a two-part question, but I think it's really important because, while it does sound like you're staying within the same industry, it sounds like you're really building this like really sort of large resume of what you're doing within this space. You're going from broadcasting, like news broadcasting, to sports broadcasting, to corporate AV. So did you build like sort of a foundational skill set in college, that led you to be able to sort of seamlessly transition? Were these transitions not seamless? And if a college student were listening, and they wanted to do what you were doing now today, or any of the jobs you mentioned, is the college program that you went through, is that something that was mandatory for your success, as far as like being able to do what you've done and what you're doing now?
A good question. So my college experience, like I said, like I had taken a documentary filmmaking course in high school. That sort of was my guiding light, that led me to want to go pursue broadcasting in college. And when I got to college, I still had that in mind. Like I still very much was oriented towards entertainment and sort of as like the end goal of my career, like for my career. Like I was going to work in television or, going to work in maybe even movies or something, and like be like producing content. And I as I went through college and I was like learning these skills and I would take like script writing courses or I would take like, acting courses or something like that. And it I would the whole time in the back of my mind I was kind of like, am I really going to be a script writer? Like am I really going to be an actor? Like I don't know, like, that's not really like what I see myself doing. Like I kind of more see myself behind the camera being more technical, directing or producing. And so I found a course, specifically the sports broadcasting course at SF State. My professor was Mike Mitchell, and the way he ran the course, he was actually just an adjunct professor. He wasn't even like tenured, and it was like the way he ran it because he was currently working at NBC, so he would like this was like a part time for him, but it was truly like the best course I took and the most important course I took because it allowed me to put my hands on the technology. And that was the way he ran his course was like, okay, like we got to put on a baseball game. We got to put a baseball game on YouTube. And so who wants to direct? Who wants to do cameras? Who wants to do audio? Who wants to replay? And so like I would just be like, what's like I'll do whatever nobody else wants to do. I'll do the replay. I'll monitor the transmission. I will, help assistant direct. I'll even just like go run a mic to people or whatever. It's like just do whatever I can. And I tried to fill a lot of those different roles. And so when I applied to CBS News, I had I actually put on my resume that I was a student producer for KSFS Media, which was our student website, like basically where we would publish our work. But I framed it as if it was like this was some kind of like not necessarily a company, but like I said, like this is like, our student run, distribution platform where we like, produce all our content and stuff. And if they went to YouTube and looked up KSFS Media, they would see some content that we had produced as students, but it was so it's like, they say don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. And if you're going into a job interview, you're telling a story about yourself. So, don't lie, but it's also like, make yourself sound good and make like what you've done sound good and make it sound like real work because it frankly, it was a very real experience. And I felt like it was very valuable experience, but I didn't have like a framework for it in like actual occupational context, but I had done the work and I had like in a academic context. And so um, when I told, CBS that I had like had experience technical directing, I had experience, doing camera work, all this stuff, through KSFS Media, it's like it had looked like I had done, 4 years of, like media work. And so that's how I would advise students is like find the technical classes, the course like the writing courses, the theory courses, all that stuff's great. It's all important, take it when you can, but really focus and try to take as many technical courses where you get your hands on technology and you get to actually touch and do things and produce content, maybe even like, put something on the internet that you can show if somebody wants a reference. And because that's what's going to set you apart. Like everyone takes the writing courses, but it's like what sets you apart is like, oh, like when I told them that I had technically directed shows, which basically means like you actually are pushing like the buttons to switch the cameras or whatever, they were really impressed. Whereas if I had just said like, well, I went to SF State and studied broadcasting and I took a sports broadcasting course, it's like that's not as impressive, And so frame your schoolwork if you can. Frame it as like, how would this look on your resume if it had been a job? You know,
Yeah.
that would be my advice.
I think that's great advice. I think it touches on a larger issue that I want to talk about. But first, I just want to comment and sort of think this through with you, where it's like, it's almost like you developed this knack for, or this willingness to take on anything in this space while in college, while in this program with this adjunct faculty member who is working, at MSNBC. It's like you develop that in college. I could totally see why once you did get into bigger broadcasting rooms, why you were so open to just take on all these roles. The larger picture that I think it paints for me, it's something that I think needs to be talked about more, is in some of these college programs, if it's lacking the technical side of what you need to be qualified to then go and get the job, then what it's requiring the student to do is to seek out internships. And I remember when I was in college, being a low income college student, it was really hard for me to find internships. Looking for an internship that would pay me, let alone pay me something where I could pay my rent to get that technical experience. It sort of put the shoulders on the student. I'm so happy that you got to experience like, a very technical, or I know you seeked out technical courses, but you at least got to have access to very technical learning environments within your program at SF State. So that's great to hear. So I kind of want to, now that we've sort of gotten this broad picture of your journey, and thanks for answering all these questions, I want to sort of put a microscope on it. What is your day to day role being in corporate AV? Like, what sort of things are you doing day to day? And what do you love about your job?
A microscope for my job is like, I'm doing everything from the coordinating to the scheduling and the execution or production of like large scale corporate events, as well as internal and external, as well as like maintaining our video conferencing units within each and every room, because I work in like a 10-story building, and every floor has these rooms that are basically have designated video conference systems and computers so that people can use Zoom, WebEx, Teams, whatever. They can just walk into a room, dial in a meeting number, and have the video conferencing application appear on the screen. And so we manage all those as well. But like right now, I'm actually in an event space. So like this would be my tech booth. So this is like my camera switcher. This is my audio board. We got like a couple mics. Like if we were doing something like more casual, where it was like they wanted to talk and like maybe like give a toast, or like be like, yeah, here's my presentation about how we can keep the office clean, and it's kind of casual, not serious, you know what I mean? This is a great mic for that, because it's like it sort of gives that vibe. This is called a dynamic mic. And then we also have like lapel mics, which is like would be for like if you were going to produce something that was going to be shown to external clients, and you wanted it to look really nice. We will like clip a mic and run the cable under their shirt so that like it's pretty innocuous, and you can like just have them sit down, use their hands, they can talk, and like it's very casual, and it's like, but it's also like more professional, I would say. But so I do like event space. Like this event space has a giant video wall in it. If you can see, I got some lo-fi hip hop playing on the large screen. So that's probably like a 20 by 30 video wall monitor that we have in here that we can like display content on. Like if a presenter had like a PowerPoint or any kind of video they wanted to show, then we would do that. Like they do yoga sessions in here sometimes. So like I'll put on like, a big candle with some like ambient music. And I think, what was the ambient music last time? It was like, oh man, I'd have to think about it, but it was a really funny song. It was like a really funny instrumental. Like it was like the intro to like White Lotus or something. But but anyways, yeah. So as for my responsibility, so like I can do all this by myself. Like I can run the audio board, run the video switcher, pull up the content on the computer, and do it all and all the routing and such by myself, because we've designed it that way. If there was a really big, like, let's say the CEO's coming to town and we're like putting this on like our internal television service or something, then I might get more hands in here to sort of help me, like have somebody designated to the video, designated to the audio, maybe somebody designated to like running a mic Oprah Winfrey style to like someone in the crowd to ask a question, and So on a basic level, that's what I do is like basically like facilitate people's um, conferences and then also like their personal meetings that they might have that might involve like audiovisual systems.
So important for me to express this idea that we all go on a journey before we get to these jobs that you see on LinkedIn and you're like, how did this person get this? So with that being said, looking back on your journey, let's go all the way back to high school when you took that broadcasting or the documentary course to where you are now. Was it worth it? Was all the time, the money, the effort, was it worth it to be where you are now?
Yes, it was. It was worth it um, because it worked out. You know what I mean? Like I really found a position and an industry where I feel like I can be creative and be challenged and grow and potentially even like start my own business one day, and take the skills I have and become my own boss, and that's what I think everything I was kind of looking for. And it helps me take care of myself. Just on the day and day, just day to day, because it's like it actually pays me a livable wage, and I can actually afford to live life, because like it's hard, man, when you're grinding and when I was fresh out of college and I was the first job I got at that station, I was only making $18 an hour, which, I mean, depending on where you live, that might seem like a lot of money, but in, the Northern California and the Bay Area, that's not a lot of money. And I felt like I wasn't going to make any more money anytime soon. You know what I mean? And ultimately it's a huge motivator. You like, at least for me, like it was stressing me out, where we'd literally be putting on the stories on the nightly news saying like Costco workers making $20 an hour. It's like, and I'd be sitting there in the control room and I'd be like, man, should I go work at Costco? Like I'm not making any money. And so I will say, like, if you're gonna do something that like you're passionate about, also advocate for yourself and try to like, you know, find a position and a wage that's going to allow you to live life. Don't like sell yourself short, for thinking like, "Oh, well, it's got to be one way or the other." Like, like, "Oh, if I'm not working in TV, like somehow I've failed or I've sold out or something like that." Where it's like, dude, now that I'm working in a corporate office and I'm making way more money than I was, I'm so much happier and so much more available to do other things. Like I continued freelancing with this sports broadcasting company for like a year after I worked here, because I just enjoyed it. And it was just something I was like, well, I'm not so stressed about the money where I like have to, do what I have to do. Now I can do what I want to do.
I've asked that same question 10 times, and every single time, everybody has said it's been worth it. Their journey has been worth it. And when you hear the beginning of these each episode, it's like, a lot of these guests, yourself included, it's trials and tribulations. It's getting through college. So just to hear that every single person I've asked has said it was worth it, I hope it just provides a little bit of hope because I know when I was in college, there were so many points where I felt hopeless. And even as an early career professional where I felt hopeless, I'm like, is any of this worth it? Is any of this work that I'm putting in to do this or go this direction? Like, none of this makes sense. And everybody said it's worth it. I thought it was worth it for myself. So I'm really, really happy that that's the case for you. My next and last question is you are the lead corporate AV now. What do you do next?
Question. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently because I am sort of reaching a point of I don't want to say stagnation, but I am kind of reaching a point where it's like I've sort of feel like I've learned what I can learn, and I've kind of reached a mountaintop, not the mountaintop, but I've reached a mountaintop, and I'm sort of looking out, and I'm kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? Do I go into management, or do I go into sort of um, trying to work with another company, maybe an integration company, or maybe a design company that like wants to that uses designs or integrates audiovisual spaces, or do I kind of just start taking baby steps into my own small business where I go to like restaurants and bars and see their setup and ask them like hey, do you guys want like a TVs in here, or do you guys want like a speaker system in here, or do you want to upgrade your system or anything like that? There's a lot of different ways I could um, choose to take my career. And one of them being just staying where I am. And if I just stay where I am and I just keep doing what I'm doing, I could get promoted. I could maybe get transferred to another city, become, help build out like a team somewhere, so, but that's not, I don't like to depend on that. I don't want to think of myself as somebody who's just going to stay here for 20 years, which, but it could happen. Um, but ultimately, I think my goal is to run my own business one day and, be able to be my own boss. And, the skills I'm learning here directly are going to allow me to do that.
That's great. And I'm sure just based off all the perseverance I know you have, but also through your story today, from going through the high school course to college to all your jobs to where you are now, I'm very confident you'll accomplish anything you want. And I think it's really important for people to hear that even when you get to the job that you'd been working to get, it doesn't end there. Like you can still go and start your own business. It's like I think people fear being stagnant one way or the other, whether that's in freelance work or working what you're in now, which is more of a corporate setting. It never stops. You can always you can always just keep building your skill set and setting new goals. So I just don't want anybody to. I want people to recognize that, because I think it's a really important point for somebody in corporate AV to then also say, I might run my own business. I might still be an entrepreneur at the end of all this. So I'm so happy for you. I know you're going to accomplish great things, or continue to accomplish great things. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Good. Thank you, man. This was really fun, and it's always great talking to you. So, love you, bro.
Love you.